We're officially in overreaction mode. Tonight was the final game of the preseason for the Indianapolis Colts and the Cincinnati Bengals. And we're in the pit of despair right now, trying to figure out exactly where to go from here. What's going on? It's Elijah from Sports Talk Indy, where we cover all things Colts every single day. And we're officially in the season of which right now everyone is losing their minds on Twitter or X about Anthony Richardson. We've got guys saying that he's the next MVP. You've got guys saying that he's already going to have a statue up in Indianapolis. Two guys like Kurt Benkert, who has a combined -2 rushing yards and 0 passing yards in the NFL, saying that he's completely given up on Anthony Richardson. So what does that mean? Where are we at? What does it think about tonight's game? All that and more on this video. What's going on? It's Elijah from Sports Talk Indy, and we are covering all things Colts every single day. And today we are talking about Anthony Richardson and the Indianapolis Colts. But before we get into that, I think there's something that we need to highlight, and that is that Leatu Latu and DeForest Buckner are going to be a force to be reckoned with. They looked absolutely lethal on the first drive, including Leatu Latu getting his first sack in the NFL. Obviously, it's preseason, so it doesn't count for anything. But let's remember that caveat as we're looking at the highs and lows of tonight's game for Anthony Richardson. Now, what was the thing we knew about Anthony Richardson going into last season? He is raw. His upside is mountains high, and his downside is valleys low. And that's not uncommon for rookie quarterbacks. Remember, this is a guy who has 4 NFL games in his belt and 1 complete start. Now, he looks good. He looks poised in the pocket. He made some errant throws, but also let's talk about the game from the start. The night started well for Richardson. On Indianapolis' first drive, Richardson completed 7 of 8 passes for 65 yards and finished with an 18-yard touchdown to rookie receiver Adonai Mitchell. And every single play on that drive, he looked really, really good. And this goes back to my theory that I had a few videos ago when we were talking about this, that Anthony Richardson is trying some stuff out. Remember, this is a guy who played for Florida, who hasn't had a lot of NFL experience, and I think when you're looking at a guy like Richardson, he's trying to figure it out. Not only is he trying to figure out NFL defenses, but he's also trying to figure out his team. Now, these are meaningless games, right? These are games that are only for practicing, trying to get better, trying to improve, and all of that. So that's the first drive. The first drive was 7 for 8. He had an 18-yard pass to Alec Pierce. He was spreading the ball around to Pierce, Pittman, Adonai Mitchell. It looked great. It looked lethal. He looked really, really good. But then the second drive came up. And after the second drive, you saw that Anthony Richardson threw a pick 6 to the Bengals wide receiver, or Bengals cornerback Jordan Battle. Or safety, excuse me. Bengals safety, who's a 2023 third-round pick. Now, if you look at this play very closely, I can't show NFL footage, or NFL won't allow me to post this on YouTube. So I'm going to break it down play by play, but I can't show the footage. So sorry about that. But this play was clearly a miscommunication between Anthony Richardson and Kylen Granson, which is not unexpected. Again, these are two guys who don't have a lot of NFL experience. Kylen Granson has just recently been thrust into the tight end 1 or tight end 2 role, with guys like Jelani Woods dealing with injury, Mo Alley Cox kind of being a little bit more inconsistent. Kylen Granson is very good, and I think he's going to be a good tight end. But again, there's not been a good option at this position for the Indianapolis Colts in a long time. And so when you're looking at that, there's chemistry to be built. You're looking at guys through the lens of like Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck, who just immediately knew exactly everything. Anthony Richardson's raw, but let's not forget, Anthony Richardson is still only 22 years old. He's a very young guy who didn't get a lot of start in college, but we know the Colts drafted him for his upside. They drafted him for what he is able to do, not what he's currently doing. So I think that this is to be expected. But again, this goes back to my theory that Anthony Richardson is trying things out. He didn't do this last year. The 4 games last year are a better sample size of who Anthony Richardson is than the 1 preseason game that we've gotten. He didn't play last preseason game. He played 1 drive and a half in the preseason game before that. So this is the first experience we're getting to see of Anthony Richardson. I would dare say that the first drive for the Indianapolis Colts tonight is more of a reflection of who Anthony Richardson is than the drives following. Because, again, you looked at the play with Kylen Granson. It was clearly miscommunication on the throw. Kylen Granson did not turn the route like he was supposed to. Richardson threw to where Kylen Granson was supposed to be, not where he was, and there was just miscommunication. Again, these are guys who haven't played together a whole lot, and on a playbook that is newer for both of them. So you're talking about all of that, but then you look at some of the errant throws, and some of them were inexcusable. Some of them weren't great. But I think that Richardson's still figuring out his own arm strength. I mean, his throw power is maxed out. But I think that even if we get a reflection of the Richardson we saw tonight with the defense that we also saw tonight, we're going to be in great hands because you still got Jonathan Taylor. You still got a team. They're not going to pull out all the stops in a preseason Game 3 against the Cincinnati Bengals. Shane Steichen is well smarter than that. This is a guy who I think should have been a candidate for Coach of the Year last year, but also I think has a good head on his shoulders enough to know that they're not going to show everything that they got in these drives. I think that they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to figure out the plays. They're trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work, what works for these guys, what doesn't. Alec Pierce, I think he's going to have a really good season. He's had a good training camp and preseason thus far, and I think that he's going to look really good. I would dare say that for the time being, our wide receivers 1, 2, and 3 are going to shift. Pittman's clearly the one, but the 2 and 3 are going to shift based on what route tree that they want to run, and that's a good thing. That's a great thing, especially for the development of Adonai Mitchell. You've got 1 year left on Pierce. He's on this year and then 1 year following, and that's the perfect time for a guy like Adonai Mitchell to really butt up. But not only that, but it's good to have a wide receiver trio instead of a duo. I mean, we see this with the Chicago Bears, who just brought in Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and drafted Rome Odunze. So you look at those guys. You look at the Eagles, what they just did tonight, where they traded for Jahan Dotson to add to Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. The Colts are looking to do the exact same thing. I don't think Pierce is going to be the end-all, but I also think that while Adonai Mitchell's really growing into who he can be as an NFL wide receiver, while Josh Downs heals and gets better, it's good to have this amount of depth at wide receiver. This isn't something that's familiar to the Indianapolis Colts, is having this level of depth of playmakers on the receiver end. Now, Anthony Richardson's going to figure it out. We saw this last season. He played phenomenally in the 4 games that he got to play with the Indianapolis Colts, including that wild comeback against the Los Angeles Rams. I think that's going to be a better reflection on who Anthony Richardson is rather than a reflection on who he was tonight. It's preseason football. Let's not overreact. Let's look at the highs and examine the lows. It's exactly what the Colts are going to be doing in film rooms tomorrow and days following before getting ready for the opener against the Texans. So I would encourage you Colts fans, let's not overreact yet. Anthony Richardson's going to be fine. And again, even if he's not this season, let's remember that Peyton Manning threw 27 interceptions his first NFL season. And you're talking about a top 5 quarterback all time. I personally say he's number 1 of all time. I understand that's a futile discussion. But you're looking at a guy like Anthony Richardson, and the ceiling is very, very high. But we're examining one singular quarter in a preseason game and making assumptions like, again, Kurt Benkert says on Twitter that he's given up on Anthony Richardson, that he's not going to be able to lead the Colts anywhere. It's ridiculous. It's childish, and it's dumb. The Colts are going to be so fine under Anthony Richardson, and I think that if you examine that first drive, that's what Anthony Richardson is. But also realize that they're going to be able to rely on the run more with Jonathan Taylor. That's going to be their pinnacle. The pinnacle is going to be the run. The pivot point is going to be the run. The cornerstone of this offense is going to be the run, and they're going to rely on the pass as a secondary. And when you got guys like Michael Pittman, Adonai Mitchell, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Kylan Granson, Jonathan Taylor, all of this offense combined into one, and if this offensive line can stay steady, they're going to be great because Anthony Richardson's going to have multiple options to throw the ball downfield. And even if not, this defense is good enough to be able to carry them. I think the Colts are going to be great. They're going to be awesome. I'm super excited to see this season. Again, you just examine that first drive and then see what worked on the other drives. I think the Colts are going to be really, really good this season, and I'm so excited to watch.